It's an age-old debate, but it's always here and will probably last as long as there are consoles around. So, Sony PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X? Which should you choose? Both consoles have already launched, and I guess some of you out there might already own one or the other, or perhaps both. Perhaps. But I dare say that most of us are still waiting for one, and we only have enough cash in our wallets to spring for one of the consoles, not two of them. So the question remains, which? First up, let's just get all of the technical details out of the way. Both the new consoles are powered by AMD at its core, featuring a custom AMD Zen 2 8-core CPU and an RDNA 2 GPU on the same chip. Both are also equipped with 16GB of GDDR6 RAM and a custom NVMe SSD. Both consoles will also support gaming up to 4K 120 frames per second along with support for ray tracing. At a glance, the two next-gen consoles are really similar, but there are a few key differences. For one, the Series X actually sports the higher performing chip over the PS5 on paper. The CPU is clocked slightly higher at 3.8 GHz and also has a beefier GPU, which can output roughly 12 teraflops of performance against the 10.28 teraflops on the PS5. The next key difference will be the capability of the SSD, where this time the tables are flipped. The custom SSD in the PS5 has almost double the throughput in both raw and compressed over the Series X, coming in at about 5.5 GB per second raw and can get up to 9 GB per second compressed. But it does come at a cost, and that's storage space. The custom SSD in the PS5 only has 667.2 GB of available space, while the Series X has over 800 GB. Additional storage is also supported by both consoles, with the PS5 sporting a standard M.2 slot for expansion, while the Series X requires you to purchase a proprietary expansion card, both having their individual pros and cons. The last key difference will be the Wi-Fi chip. Series X comes equipped with Wi-Fi 5, whereas PS5 comes with Wi-Fi 6. Now there are a few other differences, but we won't dive too deep. In general, those are what you need to know. By now, you might be thinking that the Series X is arguably the more powerful console. Although it does lose out on SSD and Wi-Fi speeds, that beefier GPU is claiming almost about 20% more performance over the PS5 on paper. In reality though, the gaming experience is rather similar. In cross-platform titles like Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, performance and visuals are downright similar. The game renders using a dynamic 4K resolution with ray tracing turned on and provides a pretty much locked 60 frames per second experience on the two consoles. The same goes for the 120Hz mode, where both consoles target roughly the same dynamic resolution between 1080p and 1440p, while outputting 120 frames per second majority of the time. The same can be also said for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, with both consoles offering a full 4K experience at 30 frames per second using the quality mode, or swap it over to a dynamic 4K experience with smooth 60 frames per second gameplay on the performance mode. Neither consoles really dropped frames and simply performed as they should. I can go on and talk about more games and compare them between the two consoles, but to be honest, I don't really have the capacity nor the capability to do such intricate testing. If you're interested in the nitty-gritty, well, I would suggest you head over to Digital Foundry's YouTube channel to find out more. They do really great work and really intricate breakdowns. But I can say with assurance that most of the games on either console are going to provide you with arguably the same experience. The same goes for backwards compatibility, where both consoles will support it and pretty much play any PS4 or Xbox One game on the new consoles respectively. What I feel makes far more of a difference and a much bigger impact is the game library, the next-gen controllers, and how the next-gen consoles fit within your current environment. Talking about the game library or the selection of games offered by either consoles is honestly quite simple. At the moment, the PS5 is the only next-gen console to offer exclusive games, with the first being Demon's Souls. If that's the selling point for you, well, you've basically made your decision. On the other hand, Series X doesn't have any exclusive games as of yet, but Xbox has something else that's pretty awesome, and that's Game Pass. Game Pass is a subscription service which will instantly allow you to access hundreds of games which Xbox offers, such as Gears 5, Forza, the Halo series, and much more. If you want instant access to tens of games, well, there you go. Next is the controller. Personally, I'm quite liking both. Although the Series X controller is just a refinement of the Xbox One controller, it's a design that works and it honestly feels really great in your hands. The DualSense on the other hand is a major and radical change from the previous DualShock 4. By all accounts, it is a huge improvement. Although it is slightly larger, it is so much more comfortable compared to the DualShock 4, especially if you're holding it for hours on end. However, what sets it apart from the rest are definitely the adaptive triggers. Like I've explained in our review of the PS5, in games like Black Ops Cold War, the tension of the triggers and actuation point of the triggers changes depending on the weapon your character is using. The trigger feels really light when aiming down sights using a handgun, but would feel quite heavy if it's an assault rifle. The trigger for firing would also change to a 2-stage trigger, and you can actually feel the actuation point. In that regard, the DualSense actually does provide another layer of immersion for your gaming experience, and it's a physical one, unlike anything else in the past. But with that being said, there are other options available for the Xbox, like the Razer Wolverine V2 that I have right here. Depending on your preference, this might actually be the more comfortable option, but more so than that, it offers a slightly different experience compared to the standard Series X controller, such as the addition of 2 multifunction buttons right by the triggers and an option to reduce the travel distance of the main triggers via a sliding lock. Of course though, the only drawback is that it's not wireless. But hey, to each their own. We now come down to the last pointer, and it's about your home/gaming environment, and this also harks back to our first pointer, the games. Now, both consoles are really amazing and they'll give you that next-gen gaming experience on a console. But there is a stark difference between how Microsoft and Sony are approaching their new next-gen consoles. Sony is still going down the so-called traditional route, where they are pushing developers to create exclusive titles for the consoles, with the first being a game like Demon's Souls, with more to come such as Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Forbidden West, and more. These titles will only be playable on the PS5 throughout the entirety of its life cycle, or at the very least for the first couple of years. Microsoft, on the other hand, has long since been pushing for multi-platform releases and going all digital for the past couple of years. There really aren't any games that's exclusive to the Series X, and most games that are developed for Series X will also be released for PC. It is Microsoft after all. So, if Series X isn't going to offer you any kind of special exclusivity over the PS5 and to that extent, the PC, what makes it stand out? This is where price comes in. For just $499 US, you're getting a really compact system comparatively speaking, that can power games up to 4K, 120 frames per second, support for ray tracing, and even additional features like quick resume. Performance at a price where it's difficult for PCs to offer. If you are someone who only owns a laptop, or perhaps you have a desktop PC but it's not really giving you a great gaming experience, take the Series X, throw in Game Pass, and suddenly, Series X is making quite a lot of sense. Now you can say the same for the PS5, but the difference here again lies in how the companies approach their systems. Any games bought on the PlayStation Store isn't going to give you access to the PC version of it, unlike Game Pass Ultimate. You are also going to spend much more for every game that you buy, and yes, it will add up over time. But on the flip side, there are exclusives. Personally for me, I would buy the PS5 over the Series X, even though I'm still kind of 50-50 about the design. The reason is quite simple. I already have quite a kick-ass gaming PC, and most of the games that I play are on PC. There really isn't much of a reason for me to get the Series X because any games on the Series X will most likely be on the PC as well. I literally bought my PS4 Pro only because I wanted to play exclusive games like The Last of Us or Persona 5. So the same line of thought applies to the PS5. I buy it because of exclusives, and the extra pointer would be that all my friends are on the PlayStation side of things, not Xbox. So that's also one thing to consider. In short, if you don't really have that great of a gaming PC, perhaps you can consider the Series X and throw in Game Pass as well, because comparatively speaking, it is relatively affordable while giving you a great gaming experience and being pretty compact and quite silent as well. Now, if you already have a great gaming PC, or you are eyeing an exclusive title on the PS5, then I would say go for the PS5. And perhaps you can save a little bit on the upfront cost if you don't mind losing that 4K Blu-ray drive by going for the digital edition. Now, if you're coming from the previous gen consoles like the PS4 Pro or the Xbox One X or One S, well then, I would say be patient. Wait a year or two, and that's because of HDMI 2.1. You really need HDMI 2.1 to fully utilize the power of next-gen consoles in order to enjoy 4K gaming at 120 frames per second. And at the moment, the market just isn't that saturated with HDMI 2.1 displays that are available. So, be patient. In any case, those are our thoughts on the Sony PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. We hope they have given you slightly more insight onto the two consoles and possibly helped you make that purchase decision. If you still have any questions, drop them down in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to us, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Till the next one, see ya and happy gaming!